So, sort of a loosey-goosey informal meeting this evening. So I'm glad everybody joined us. Let's go ahead and get started at 7:01. I can't believe we're actually starting on time. There's some people here. I think we're actually fighting against a meeting that National is having today. So, if you have a chance, both of our meeting is recorded and their meeting is recorded. You can go ahead and watch both at your leisure. So this meeting is being recorded. Will be posted to the YouTube probably by the end of the weekend. So quick agenda, just a welcome to new members. Curtis, I don't normally call out members, but you're here and you seem willing and ready to participate and volunteer. So I will call out Curtis, who is not necessarily a new member to Wild Ones. He's a transfer from the Arkansas chapter. So welcome, Curtis. We are going to talk a little bit briefly about Wild Ones 25, our grant program, spring plant purchase update. We'll talk about tree of the month, invasive of the month, some upcoming events and opportunities, then sort of an open discussion dialogue about spring stuff, live staking, spring cleanup. I was hoping to get some ephemerals in there. I didn't have a chance to get them in, but I see somebody did post some pictures in the slides of stuff that was popping in their garden. And I think I knew who that was based upon the photos that I think I have seen on Facebook. So there are numbers associated with those popping natives. And I'm assuming that somebody has the key to those numbers. We'll find out.
We'll recognize them.
I recognized a good chunk of them. There's a couple of them that I had trouble with, but Jessie's sitting there with a big smile on her face, so I think she knows something about it.
I think Jessie knows something about it. You're right.
Okay, somebody's echoing. Just a quick board update. Things have not changed. I am your president for the next several months. Our secretary is Susan. Denise, despite the fact that she is not physically located in southeastern Pennsylvania or New Jersey, she is our treasurer at large down in North Carolina. Thank you. Judy is our membership chair, and Marilyn and Jessie are our board members. Jessie is our past president and has agreed to stay on the board to help us out. We're always looking for volunteers. If you think you might be willing to participate, we always welcome input. We can certainly use any help we can get. We have about 153 active members in the chapter. I do usually take this slide to call for volunteers. Curtis has stepped up and volunteered as the new guy to table the event at the Watershed Master Native Plant Sale for Bucks County. That is at the Middletown Grange on May 10th. Thank you again, Curtis. Hopefully you will see us there. I think is that Mother's Day weekend?
Oh, gee. Let me look. Mother's Day. Mother's Day is the 11th.
Okay, so it's the Saturday Mother's Day. We're talking about, and we have been invited to table at April 26th at the Phoenixville Earth Day. And I don't think Phoenixville is spelled right on that slide. Now I'm looking at it. It doesn't look right.
Well, close enough.
I apologize to anyone that lives in Phoenixville for spelling the town incorrectly. So if anyone's interested in tabling in late April, we actually have, I think, a meetup that day as well, right? Is our Jenkins meetup the 20?
It's Friday.
Yeah, it's Friday the 25th.
Right. Their garden shop opens Friday. So, and you didn't have the time on it because
I did not.
Right. I mean, whatever you and everybody else decide, I'm unfortunately away that weekend. So
you were away last year too.
Yeah. Well, every other weekend, 50% is hard to get to
it's
stuff.
a 50-50 shot with Susan.
It is. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll decide that sort of at the end of the presentation. We can talk about when it is and timing. And in the plant show, I know we like to be there for opening day, but maybe we'll make that a Saturday.
I think we did last year.
We did.
Right, because people at work, it's tough to get a Friday off. Although half the people apparently don't work on Friday, right?
I've been trying to put in my hours mostly Monday through Thursday, and then I take half
Yeah.
Fridays.
Yeah, I know tons of people who do that because the flexibility is there and it's just, it's good for your head, I think, to get out early.
Especially now that the weather's getting better and I want to get outside and mess around in the yard.
Exactly.
So we did, I don't know if you guys were present or had a chance to catch the presentation last month for Riverbend Educational Center. It was a great presentation. Prior to that presentation, they actually had applied for a grant for us, and the board had approved that grant. So we approved the amount of $527.39 for the project. They had sort of an interesting plant list. If you can look on your screen is the layout. They put in some, some chokeberry, some black hall viburnums, American witch hazel, silky dogwoods, mertensia, and some rue, some asters. I thought it was a pretty good layout, and they actually had a really good grant application, one of the best we've seen. We have also approved $1,000 grant for Umuha. Is that how you say that?
I don't know. I've been saying Umoja, but maybe that's not right.
Umojo?
I don't know.
Umoha? Right? Swarthmore Borough, it's a 1.26 acre park in Swarthmore. Typically, in 100% of the time when we approve these grants, they are for native plant purchases pretty much exclusively. So they gave us a plant list. We approved the grant for $1,000, provided that it had a maintenance plan and agreed to our terms, which typically mean no chemicals, no herbicides during the preparation of the gardens. Did you have anything you wanted to add to that, Susan?
I think we were impressed by this grant by the breadth of community support, and I listed the organizations that the grant applicant listed as partner organizations that were going to help prepare the site, install the plants, and then maintain them as a community project. So we always take that into account, is how much community support is there. And this park, even though it's quite small, is, I think, at the intersection of 3 streets. It seemed to be a triangle formation, so highly visible to the community. And so we thought it was a good thing to have that planted native and also to be well maintained by a variety of local organizations.
I think that's great. Yeah, we really supported this, and I think we've been trying to set aside a certain amount of club money every year to donate to grant organizations and grants. I think we're probably coming pretty close to our limit for the year, but I'm sure there's still a little bit of grant money available for anyone interested. The grant application is on our website. I think that the spring plant sale is closed at this point. So if everybody got their orders, Susan, have invoices gone out for this?
They did.
Okay.
Yep. Anybody who ordered and is on this call, if you didn't get your invoice, let me know because they went out.
Okay.
Yeah, middle of the week.
Mark happened
Yeah.
to mention he didn't get his.
Mark,
I just want to make sure that maybe you didn't get my email. I submitted it the day before the deadline. I think, was it the 3rd was the deadline? And that's
Mark, I don't have an order from you. I was waiting
Yeah.
because I know you had said at the last meeting you were going to. I don't have a thing from you. Nope, I check the Gmail multiple times a day. Send it
Okay.
again, please.
Okay, I'll
We
do
can
that.
still add plants.
Oh, you
And like I
can.
said, I was kind of waiting for you, so.
Well, thank you.
We know you're a regular, Mark, so we should
Yeah,
respect
yeah,
it.
and I
That
know
I
you need
am. I
them.
love my plants.
Right, and we can add on to the order. That's not a problem. And Rick, I didn't know if you wanted to order. I didn't get anything from you.
I'm good. I still have plants in the tray from last year, so I feel bad about ordering more plants without actually having planted last year's
You did
bounty.
say that. Yeah.
Um,
Mark, if you can send me your order tonight, I'll get it to North Creek in the morning. I'm leaving town about 11, but if you get it to me tonight, I can get it out to them.
Yeah, I can do that. I have,
Okay.
just a quick, my email address that I have to send is wildones@southeastpennsylvania@gmail.com, right? That's correct.
Hang on, I'm checking.
It
Wait a
shows that I
minute.
sent it, but I don't.
Well, that's why I don't have it. All right, where do I look for the stupid email address? God, I hate Gmail. Oh, Wild Ones of SEPA. wildonesofsepa@gmail.com. And it's
Yeah.
Wild Ones of SEPA is all together, all lowercase.
Okay.
Is that why? Because it's Southeastern Pennsylvania is not spelled out.
No, that's what I had. I'll send it,
Oh,
see what happens.
Okay.
yeah, send it again.
All right.
All right.
Thank
So again, invoices went out this week. Pay them as soon as possible. Susan, are they mailing the invoices to you, or are we mailing them to Denise?
To me,
Checks are being mailed
Checks.
to Denise. It's in the instructions. Her
Okay.
address is in the instructions.
can you
Okay.
remind me what the deadline is when
End
they
of-
should have
End
their
of March.
end of March?
End of March. Yeah.
Which is coming up rather rapidly. This month flew by.
Right. And Denise, you can just send back that spreadsheet to me or just confirm everybody's paid, whichever is easier
Okay.
for you. Because we will cancel any orders that haven't been paid for before we need to pay for them. Which
Okay.
is, I'm going to say we're going to get charged probably April 15th, if I had to guess.
Okay.
So we should have everything in hand and all the checks deposited and cleared before that.
And then pickup is the end of April.
We don't know. It's the week of the 21st. They never let us know until the Friday before which day and which time.
Okay. It'll
Which is
probably be
tough
the
on,
weekend after the 21st for pickup for most
yeah,
people.
for everybody else. We don't know when delivery is, which is tough for you, Rick. But we'll get all hands to your house.
Okay. That's fine.
We'll manage that.
In sales, so I'm pretty flexible. Thank goodness.
Well, that's good. Unless
Yeah.
you're in DC or York
Right.
or New York City.
During a high conference season.
Oh, is it? Okay.
So, okay, I think plant sale's pretty well wrapped up. Anybody have any questions on the plant sale? I think we beat that one to death. Invasive of the month is the callery pear, also known as the Bradford pear, and it is something that I have just started to see sprouting out of alongside the tree in the wooded areas that I'm in these days. Susan, can you
I
share?
was wondering, sure. I was wondering if you'd seen it on the highway since you've been down
have.
south further, where it might be
I
out,
have. I have
Denise?
not seen it in bloom yet, but I recognize it's starting to emerge.
Okay. So not flowering yet?
Not flowering yet.
Denise, do you see it down by you yet?
Oh yeah, it's almost finished.
Okay.
And
Really?
that it was planted heavily in this neighborhood.
Oh,
Yeah.
has it escaped?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So this picture is what we'll be seeing on our highways. I think that's even a Pennsylvania highway, although I don't remember which one. And that's what it looks like. It's just one of the first to bloom. The white flowers are unmistakable, that form, and the fact that they form thickets in the wild. The cultivated variety that, as you said, Denise, is planted in neighborhoods doesn't look like that. It just looks like one tree. And the issue with this tree is that the cultivars were all supposed to be sterile, but in fact, they will cross-pollinate and so produce fertile seeds. And the birds love these tiny little fruits, which are about the size of cherries, somewhere between cherries and crab apples, and apparently are very sweet once they get a couple frosts on them. And so the birds eat them, take them, well, you know what birds do. And when the seeds sprout, as you know, they don't come true to their cultivar parents. They revert back to whatever the original genetic material was. And that material is a thicket forming thorny tree. So it's really hard to get out. And if you cut it at the base, which is the instinct, apparently these wild trees will sprout madly. So that if you have the wild version, if you have a domestic tree, my understanding is, and I had one, you can cut it down and it may put out a couple root shoots right at the stump, base of the stump, but it's not really going to be aggressive. If you have wild trees, apparently they are much more aggressive sprouters. And you just have to go back more often with your pruning saw and hack all the way around the cut trunk, cut off any sprouts that are coming up from the roots, because of course you can't grub out the roots on a whole thicket like that. And just keep going back every spring until you've exhausted the stash of nutrients in the root base. So this is not an easy tree to get rid of if you have the wild version, but very worthwhile to get rid of. So we make the effort.
Do we know, is it on the banned list for PA now?
Oh, I didn't mean to look that up. Does it say in the article?
That's
I
what I
can-
It
just
is
was curious.
banned. It is banned.
Is
Is
it
it?
on the
Yeah,
Um,
definitely banned.
Thank you,
noxious
Cindy.
Noxious weed list. Okay. It's on the
Good.
noxious weeds list in a lot of states now. But obviously too late. That horse
Yes.
has disappeared.
As they say, the cat is out of the bag, right? Like it is everywhere. It is prolific. It
It's
is the time of
horses.
year.
Yeah. It's horses out of the barn
Yep.
and roaming all over the countryside. Yeah. So the issue is really if you have domestic ones, cut them down because they will cross-pollinate with others and proliferate, continue the problem. If you have wild lands and you have thickets, do your best to get in there and get rid of the thickets because they're also going to produce fertile seed and that's also going to spread.
There's,
Just
it's strange because they were such a popular landscaping tree amongst every sort of housing development and shopping center here in the Southeast. They were prolific everywhere. And they also have a very short lifespan, right? They're like 20-year trees. They split fairly easy. When they get large, they have a tendency to split and break pretty
have heard
readily.
that, right? Which is why more cultivars were developed. They were
Right.
apparently bred to have a different a branching system that would be a little more stable.
Good.
But yeah, not a tree to plant there. I think most communities, most municipalities probably don't probably have it on their list of developers may not plant. You know how subdivision ordinances have a list of plants that you recommended plants and plants that you can't plant. I think this is probably on the don't plant list, but they're already out there.
And that's one that's in the PA what's it called? Replacive
Oh yeah.
program where if you cut it down, take a picture, they will give you 5 free native plants. But somebody said it's all sold out. There's only 5 distribution places in PA. So I don't know.
And
That's
nothing
why
close to us. Yeah.
I think I did put the slide together for that. There is something in here that mentions it.
Okay.
Needs.
Darby, isn't Darby pretty close?
Darby is very close. Darby's in, Delco, Delaware County.
There is one in Darby. But
That's
somebody,
Upper Darby. I don't know if there's a Darby.
There's Darby and Upper Darby are fairly close to each other.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, for me, that's too far away, but it depends on
So,
where you are.
jumping from something you don't want to something that you certainly would welcome in your yard, and I've got at least 2 of them in my yard, and
Yay.
maybe a couple more that are sort of suckering as a result of that. Tree of the month this month is the red maple. My red maples are popping right now, so it's very timely. Susan, can you tell us more about the red maple?
So that's interesting, Rick. Is that the when you say they're popping, that's the red haze that you see when you
Yes.
look up into the tree?
Mhm.
So that's one characteristic of red maple is that the buds, the emerging leaves, and of course the fall leaves are all red. Hence the name. It is a wetland indicator plant, so it likes wetter soil. And Rick, I think you have soil with actual water in it. Yeah.
I do,
Okay.
and
So
slightly acidic.
okay, so those are perfect conditions for red maple, which explains why yours could be happy and could be spreading. But it's apparently a very adaptable tree in terms of where else it likes to grow. So in theory, it could grow on my dry, rocky ground. And I've got a couple planted, and so far they're surviving. So red maple is also what's called an early successional species, which means if an opening in the woods occurs from a tree falling down or hurricane or whatever, this is one of the trees that could be in the seed bank lying dormant and will pop up fairly quickly. So they pop up quickly, they grow quickly, and they're also relatively short-lived, less than 100 years, which is short for maples. So it's not an old growth tree, but it's going to fill in to start with, which is good. The bad news is that deer will eat it. So if you have deer, you probably are not going to see a lot of red maple shoots. And Rick, I don't know what your deer situation is.
I've got significant deer pressure.
And how are the red maples doing with that? The seedlings?
My fully grown red maples are fine. My saplings suffer.
Okay. Okay. So the deer will eat them. So
Yep.
on the other hand, they seed prolifically and they, as I said, pop up quickly. So maybe they can outnumber the deer and outcompete them. That's a tough one. So it's a good tree if you can deal with the deer or work around it somehow. It's probably one that's going to work on most sites just because it's so forgiving of soil conditions. And of course, great for pollinators in part because it's flowering so early. So the very first pollinators who are coming out, and I've seen one bumblebee, they can take advantage of the nectar and pollen from early flowering trees like the red maple.
Fantastic. And, good growing conditions, deep, moist soils, acidic soils. Mine are very happy right now. So,
So can I ask you, I have a question. I'm Rob Gage.
Hi,
We're
Rob.
in Narberth, Pennsylvania. And I love sugar maples. I grew up in New England, so I have a kind of affinity for them. And we replaced a silver maple that was on our street that fell down after probably being 80 years old. And we planted a sugar maple, but now I'm told there's some sugar maple, red maple combination tree that in other words, our sugar maple may have a red maple kind of genetically be combined with it. Is that anything you know about?
Did you get a named cultivar? Like, did it have a name to it when you bought it? You got it from a nursery?
I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure about that. I mean, it's branching out like a sugar maple. And it's healthy and but I'm not sure. So I'm kind of asking an
Okay,
uninformed
so
question kind of.
yeah, I don't know specifically about any sugar maple, red maple crosses, but it makes sense that they could hybridize naturally or they could be crossed. And one reason that might have been done by a nursery is that this is the southern limit for sugar maples, probably now.
Right,
So
right.
red maples being much more compatible in our area, somebody might have thought, well, let's extend the range of the sugar maple
Yeah.
a little bit, especially with all the climates getting warmer. Let's cross it with red maple, which is happy in this climate and more
Yeah.
adaptable. It's a possibility, but I don't know.
Yeah. So we had another, when we moved into this house 30 years ago, there's already I think probably a full sugar maple there. And clearly it is stressed out. It's not, I mean, I think it's reaching its end. So that would make sense that someone would try to
Ouch. Yeah.
yeah. It's
That's
And
hard.
a
with
shame.
climate change, it's a good possibility that that's sort of hurting the sugar maple as well, right? Because we're seeing warmer summers, drier summers, which certainly would stress out the sugar maples.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they don't like it.
yeah. Oh, that's too bad, but okay, well, thank you, I appreciate that.
Thanks for your
Sure,
question,
and
Rob.
maybe this one will be hardier because if it does have a red maple component to it, maybe it'll
Yeah,
survive a little better.
I mean, we bought it as a red maple. It was just an arborist who was working for our neighbor who commented, this looks like a hybrid, hybrid tree, which I hadn't heard of, but.
Oh, yeah, well,
There is
we
a
can-
hybrid, it's called the Freeman maple. It's a hybrid between a red maple and a silver maple, actually.
those can both be tapped for
Right.
sap if that's the goal. I mean,
Yeah.
sugars are
when-
the sweetest, but the other ones can be tapped
Yeah,
too.
when we moved onto our block 30 years ago, it was pretty much all silver maples, as many blocks were planted here in our borough, and they all hollowed out. And now I think we've lost 12 trees on our block because they hollow out, and they're gone. But anyway, so
Wow. Yeah,
My
that's a
silver
lot.
maples are in rough shape. I think they're just sort of reaching the end of their life.
yeah, they're all pretty much gone now.
Rick, is that from age or do you think it's a climate thing? They just don't like it this warm?
I'm not sure they're popped up. I did not plant them. They were in my yard when I got there. They're in a wet area. I don't necessarily know that that's good for them. I just know that
Oh,
there's a lot of dead limbs. I get a lot of drop from them every year, and
Yeah.
I think I am going to actually get a tree person in this year to kind of do some trimming before that falls on my neighbor's garage.
In our neighborhood, it's pretty much age. I think they were all planted 80 to 100 years ago.
Okay.
And I think
that's an age thing, Right.
They're just, they're just dropping. So,
All right, so moving on. Events and educational opportunities. Mount Cuba is popping this month. There is a bunch of stuff going on at Mount Cuba. If you're interested, I'm not going to read everything off. Most of this will be included in the newsletter with the events. Just definitely check out Mount Cuba's website for a bunch of educational opportunities if you're interested. Some great stuff in there I'd love to see. I'd like to bring your attention sort of to the bottom of the page, and that is the plant sale at Jenkins. That will be part of our April opportunities and get-togethers, one of our in-person events. So next month, in lieu of a webinar event, we will be having a live in-person event at Jenkins, probably on the weekend.
Rick, I did want to highlight that Mount Cuba is having an education open house next week, March 23rd. That's free. So
Okay.
you can get a garden tour with that, as well as checking out their classes. And it's free.
Cool. Which is rare for Mount Cuba,
Do
honestly.
they have a time?
12 to 4.
Thank you.
Okay,
I
so
don't-
again, direct everybody to the Mount Cuba website. Definitely worth checking out, and plenty of events. I guess things are going to start popping out there pretty soon as well. Next page, again, sort of Mount Cuba events. Lancaster Native Plant and Wildlife Festival coming up the end of April. And then the Master Gardeners Plant Sale in Lancaster County, May 3rd.
Brandywine plant sale on Mother's Day.
Ooh, okay.
That's the
Wonderful native
11th.
plants, all sorts of options.
Yeah.
Okay, May 11th, right?
May 11th, right. I think there's some before, but I think that's members only,
Okay.
but Mother's Day is open to everybody.
May
I
11th.
think, you'll have to check their website.
Okay. Brandywine Conservancy, May 11th, native plant sale. Events for us. So we were deciding these aren't necessarily, sanctioned events. There is a screening in Great Valley at the PSU campus of this backyard wilderness video, which looks kind of cute. Definitely something that would interest children, grandchildren, and those of us who are young at heart. So we decided to make that sort of a Wild Ones get together. I actually do have a preview of the trailer for that in the next slide. So I'll show it if you're interested. Please consider joining us. I'm dragging Jason. He doesn't know it yet, but he's going with me. And
Good one. I can
he's
just
in there,
let
he's
you
like,
know.
go where? And then we hope to have Jenkins, the plant meetup as well later in the month. So we have 2 in-person events next month in lieu of a webinar event. I'm looking forward to it. I hope the weather cooperates for our trip to Jenkins. And I hope I spend less money than I spent there last year. So this is the film. Again, it sort of appeals to a younger audience, but I definitely thought it was cute.
Might have to fix the audio, Rick. We're not hearing it.
Discovery. Welcome to my backyard. Nature closer than ever before. And the countless relationships that keep us alive. Discover that Wi-Fi is not the only connection that matters. And step outside into backyard wilderness. Now playing on IMAX and giant screens.
So I saw a lot of open mouths there. I even got a little teary. Like, I don't know why, but so consider joining us. I think that'll be a good one. It's an
Those are pretty
IMAX movie. I
stunning
don't think that.
shots, don't you think?
Hmm.
Pretty stunning shots.
Yeah, I agree. That poor
Yeah.
little duck that fell off the tree. Like,
It's a
I
wood
saw
duck.
Jesse mouth like, oh.
No,
They're
that's
wood
that's
duck,
a
that's
wood
what they
duck.
do.
Right, that's what they're supposed to do.
It's
Okay.
a soft,
That
soft
wasn't-
landing.
The leaves are helpful.
That was entirely intentional, right? That's how they get out because they don't fly at that point.
I have to hop off, but thank you, guys. I'll be back.
Thank
next
you,
time.
Rob. Thanks for joining us. We hope to
Yeah, I'll
see
be
you again
back.
soon.
I
Great.
have many, many questions, so I'll be back.
All right, thanks.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
So I haven't been doing a lot in the yard lately, but the one thing that I kind of have been doing, just because it's the time of year and before these certain species branch out, it's a good time to live stake. So I did this presentation, I think last January. I thought it would just be good to do a quick review, to do sort of review of live staking. It's a good way to get woody plants on the cheap. So what is a live stake? It's a live stake is a dormant stem cut from a woody plant and then planted in the ground. When should you live stake? Now is the best time. Actually, about a month ago would even be better. But until the branches start leafing out, you can cut a piece and stick it in the ground and live stake it. Where does live staking work best? It needs constant moisture. So to establish roots after placement, stream banks and rain gardens work best. But if placing in drier areas, access to water will be necessary. And I water mine just about every other day, even with the rain that we have been having.
The what?
The rain we've been having. I've had a
No.
little bit of rain.
No, there has been no rain. Water them every other day. You're right.
Every other day.
Yep.
I go out and I stick my finger in the ground, and if it feels wet, then I don't bother.
Yeah, you have ground that actually absorbs rain, those of us that don't. Denise had a good idea though. Maybe you're going to talk about that at the end to
In the
start them
buckets?
to start them in water.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this is just the traditional way. This is the slides that I had from last year. We have 2 slides added at the end of this. And we can talk about some other things, right? So cut stakes that are a 1/2 inch to 2 inches thick, 2 feet tall. Make sure each one contains 3 to 5 neat leaf nodes. Cut the bottom of the stake at an angle, typically a 45-degree angle, just above a node. Aim your plants to stake right after cutting. So that's what I've been doing. I've just been running out, kind of hacking them and then sticking them right in the ground. If you don't plant or don't have time to plant them right now, stick them in water. Keep them wet. They often come. The first year that I bought live stakes, I bought them from Ernst, and they came sort of wrapped in wet burlap and were fine. They made it through the short trip from Meadville, Pennsylvania to Plymouth Meeting, Pennsylvania, and I got them in the ground within a week, and they did very well. I had about a 50% survival rate my first shot.
That's high.
Yeah.
I've heard 20 as a goal, but that's if you're restoring a stream bank and you just stick them all in there and leave. So your watering obviously worked.
And certain ones worked better than others. I think that first year I ordered a bunch of pussy willows, salix, and none of the salixes made it. They just didn't.
They
I think
didn't?
It did not.
Ah, that's surprising because one thing about willows is that they have sort of a natural rooting hormone. So if I was going to suggest if you have a willow on your property, just cut some twigs and stick it in the water if you have to keep these in a bucket. And I've heard that that helps them root when they finally get planted. So I'm actually surprised that your pussy willows didn't.
I've also heard of people like smashing up the ends of willows, right? Like not just only cutting it, but kind of macerating it or splitting the wood to the point where I'm not sure if it releases a hormone that actually allows that roots to form. But
Or it's just water soluble. Yeah.
the only person that's unsuccessful at rooting willow.
Do you want me to bring you some back from New York? I'm headed up this weekend.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, please. Okay.
Okay. No problem.
Fantastic.
Rick,
So, those of you
last-
that I'm sorry,
Your
Denise.
last bullet point said to paint the tops I guess to help to keep them from drying out.
Right.
What kind of paint do you use?
I have never painted the tops of mine.
Latex, not
Latex?
oil-based.
Just
Latex
like-
paint.
Okay.
Mhm.
Just House paint?
Yeah, white latex exterior paint.
Alright.
I wouldn't use spray paint somehow. I would use water-based, latex exterior paint. Or
I
you
wonder
know
if you
what?
could also just like use wax or tape or something.
You could
to
use
prevent-
wax, right? When woodworkers cut their own wood, they wax the cut ends. They dip
Okay.
them in wax, literally. So yeah, wax also works fine, just to slow the moisture loss.
So this is an area of my yard, it's sort of along the highway here. This is Sandy Hill Road, Plymouth Road here in Plymouth Township. In 22, I ordered some dogwoods from Ernst. They came, you can see here where they're sort of in red circled. They were, I think, 18-inch dogwoods. I think I put 12 inches in the ground, left a 6-inch stick up.
Wow, they grew a lot.
Yeah, and actually, you'll be
Nice.
surprised. So, this is October, so that was one summer. You can sort of see the two areas, those two little stubs. Within the first year, I had leaves on them. That was the winter of 24, so last January. And then right after the plant sale pickup, the township came and thought they were weeds and mowed them all down.
You found out it was the township
I
that
found
did
out
that?
it was the township.
Did you make them replace them?
I did not. It was actually the state. It's not even the township. It was the state
Oh, it's
because
a
I live along
state
a
road.
state
Oh,
road. So
but
there was no
but Rick, who has more pull with PennDOT than anybody on this call?
you
You,
would
dude.
think that
I
I could make a call, right?
I would think you could make it happen, yeah.
They
But
did not come back?
surprisingly enough, Maryland, they came back like gangbusters this year.
That's what I would think.
Yeah,
Nice. Good.
Osher dogwoods are designed to be sort of nibbled on by all kinds of deer, and it's actually the fresh growth on it is the only thing that really turns red. So the more you trim them, the redder they tend to be. So if you come to anybody who bought plants, it's coming to my house to pick up the plant sale. By that time, they should be leafed out, but you will be surprised at how they've grown. They're about 4 or 5 feet tall now, and it's hard for me to believe that after
Nice.
3 years, I planted something that was 6 inches out of the ground that's now 5 feet tall.
3 years and a swipe by PennDOT.
Yep.
Who
Yeah, I mean,
knew?
literally almost to the ground, a good part of them. I didn't think they were going to come back, but lo and behold, they did.
Wow. Wow. You could pretend that PennDOT knew that, but
So, and it was funny because I just about caught them cutting down the second time. It was a Sunday afternoon, and I got home from camping, pulled up to the driveway, and the arm of the mower was just dropping, getting ready to mow them down again.
on a Sunday.
Yeah.
Whoa.
And I hopped out and I like threw myself in front of this lawnmower. I'm like, stop. So now
I
we have
think
like
you
a
need
don't mow native plants sign.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
You
it's
need a sign.
5 feet up in the air so the mower guy can see it as he's approaching our property.
So it hits the blade when he tries to lower it.
Right.
I like that.
So best natives to live steak, there's a very good list. You can see what's on there. Buttonbush, I've had success with. I did actually have 2 pieces of gray
Oh.
dogwood this year that I tried just because they were snapped. And I thought it was a good opportunity to salvage them and try and get them to grow into something else. Sandbar willows, all kinds of salix tend to respond very well to live steak. I have black elderberry, which I took a couple cuttings from this year, tried to put some of that in the ground as well.
Well-
9 bark. Has anyone ever had any luck with spice bush, like live staking spice bush?
No, I'm going to try that though, since it's on the list. I love that.
I'd like
Let-
to try it. I haven't had
Let
any
you know
luck with it.
next year. Yeah.
Denise, you want to take this one?
I was so excited. Someone gave me a stick in December and I just put it in water. It's like the easiest thing.
That's so cool. That's pussy willow, right?
That's elderberry.
Oh, elderberry. Okay. Yeah, I can
So-
see the leaves.
Yeah, so once it made a huge mass of roots, I put it in and leafed out. I put it into a pot because I think it's a little too early to put it outside. We're still getting a little bit of frost here. So
Okay.
My elderberry is blooming right now. I mean, it's leafing out, so they might be okay outside.
Yeah, I guess I should harden it off maybe a little bit.
Mine's starting to
Good
emerge as well,
idea.
Marilyn.
Probably a good idea to harden it off, put it on the
Yeah.
porch or something. Yeah.
Cool. Does anybody have any questions on live staking?
Well, Rick, maybe I'll just jump in real quick because I tried the stick 'em in the ground technique a couple of years ago when I first heard about it. And because I have dry, rocky, and no rain, I got no survival. So last year I did the same cutting, the same technique, and I put them in pots, 1 gallon pots, kept them on my patio, watered them every other day, Rick, because I could, because they were right there.
Right.
And every single one of them made it. So for me, in an environment where I can't get around to water everybody every 2 days and the soil is horrible. That worked. And I planted them out in the fall and they're pussy willows and they're starting to bud and a couple have catkins on them. So that worked. That's an alternate technique along with starting them in water.
Great. Yeah, well, thank you, Susan. So, couple kind of comments in the chat. I just happened to look at. Judy says that she needs whatever sex of spice bush that she doesn't have, so it's impossible to know. I'm not sure how to sex spice bush, but I just know that I think I've got both because I do get berries on mine,
Well, the
and then
ones with the berries are the girls.
are the females.
Right. Tie a pink ribbon on them in the fall. And then the
Okay.
ones that aren't are either too young or they're the males.
And then Christy asked why live steak less expensive. So Cindy or Christy, if you know people that have these types of trees, certainly, the least expensive natives are the ones that you get donated by friends. So if your friends have dogwoods or salix, certainly reach out to them. Here's a good place to start. All of us have those types of plants on our properties. If you're interested in live staking or learning more about it, just reach out to any one of us and we can hook you up with some live stakes.
I have some red twig dogwood in pots that I've been ignoring, so I'm hoping they're gonna work, but if anybody wants any, I'll see if they work. Don't know if they work yet.
We could bring them for trade at the North Creek pickup.
There you go.
I could do that.
Yeah,
Perfect.
I'll bring your pussy willows.
If they
Okay.
look like they're alive.
Yeah, don't bring dead plants.
By then you'd be able to tell in April.
Yeah.
Yeah. But another reason to live stake is if you've got an area like a stream bank or you're trying to plant an entire native hedge and, buying plants would be prohibitive, but heck, just stick a bunch of live stakes either in the ground or in pots. And next year you're going to have the beginnings of a hedge like you did, Rick, for the whole
Yeah.
front of your house. If you had bought 3-gallon dogwood plants, who knows? What do you have, a dozen plants?
Right.
That's 400, $500.
And I certainly would have been crying had the state come through and mowed down $500 worth of plants. As it was,
Yeah.
I think the live stakes when I bought them were $1.50 a piece. So it really wasn't too upsetting to me when the state came and mowed them all down.
Right. And then they came back anyway. Nice.
So sorry for the lack of pictures here. I was kind of looking for content. We were all sort of scrambling for this meeting to come up with sort of spring content. I pulled this list and sort of modified it off something online that I had found, but I think it certainly is applicable. It's too late to start or too early in the season to start planning stuff outside of sort of live stake and hardened off stuff. I didn't do any winter sowing this year, so I don't even have that to tend to.
Oh.
So this year I was kind of looking for things to do. So here's a good list of sort of early spring native garden projects. Delay cleanup, that's what they've always said. We're going to talk about that a little bit on the next slide. Certainly don't, get rid of leaves or anything until the ground reaches about 50 degrees or above overnight. So mainly native bees, butterflies, and other beneficial insects overwinter in plant stems and fallen leaves. Early cleanup disrupts their life cycles. Selective pruning. Instead of cutting everything down to the ground, consider trimming stems 12 to 24 inches. This provides continued habitat for nesting cavity insects. Plant asters, goldenrods, and coneflowers, which have hollow stems, particularly for these types of insects. Avoid removing any fallen leaves. They provide critical habitat and natural mulch. If necessary, move the top layer of fallen leaves away from emerging plants, but leave them in other areas of the garden. Fallen leaves also provide natural habitat for ground-dwelling insects. Consider creating brush piles. Instead of discarding pruned stems and branches, create brush piles in a corner of your yard. This provides shelter for birds, plants, and amphibians and other wildlife. It's an excellent time to remove invasive plants, such as garlic, mustard, lesser celandine, as they are often the first to emerge. Take stock of your garden, identify any areas that need attention, plan to plant new plant additions to enhance biodiversity. Gently loosen compacted soil around existing plants, add compost to improve soil fertility, begin to water plants as needed as the weather begins to warm up and rainfall becomes less frequent. Embrace a messy garden aesthetic. Native plant gardens are meant to mimic natural ecosystems, which are not always perfectly tidy. Prioritize the needs of wildlife, but use hand tools instead of power tools whenever possible to minimize disturbance. By following these guidelines, you can create a healthy and thriving native plant garden that benefits both wildlife and the environment. So what is a messy garden aesthetic? Here's a perfect example of a messy maximalism. Is that somebody's garden that we know?
I threw a couple things in there.
I thought so.
Yeah.
So, I certainly embrace messy maximalism. I think most of us here do. I think there's a place in every yard for a little bit of mess.
Well, and we know what that's going to look like in a couple of months. I think we've seen pictures of this garden in the
Yes.
summer. So this is what you need to do and look at over the winter and in the spring in order to have that covered with blooms in the summer. If you want grass and trees with volcano mulch, that's all you're going to see in the summer.
Right.
So it's really about what do you want to see for the rest of the year.
But the fun part about this is it's not just the plants that are there. Like if I stand there quietly, birds and, squirrels and all sorts of little things are in there all year. It's not as obvious as it will be later, but there's always fun stuff to see. So, and then I can look at, the crowns of these plants that have been standing and see the new growth come out. And I can see the insects that have holes that have overwintered or are, finding shelter. So you're creating your own safari. And I like how, what's his name? Vought always says brown is a color. Like, so this is still the most predominant color right now, but it will soon be very different.
And learn to appreciate all the beautiful shapes and stuff of those flower heads and all those things. So
Right.
it's really
Oh,
lovely.
And the leaf buds right now are just blowing my mind. I just love them all so much as they swell in all their different shapes, and it's fantastic.
Maryland pycnanthemum, mountain mint has that really neat seed head now that's still standing up. It's a cluster, and of course it smells wonderful. So every time I pass by it, I just brush it with my hand, and whoosh, there's the mint. Even though the plant itself, is still dormant, it's barely poking through. But those stems are fantastic.
I have chelone seed heads that are really very, very pretty. And
oh, I don't have that plant. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, good. I can't wait to look for bumblebee nests. Now that I know that if I cut the stems to 2 feet high in the winter, I can start, I can see if there are bumblebees starting to nest in there this spring. That's going to be fun.
That's a great segue into our next slide, Susan. Thank you. I don't know
Okay.
if you even knew that was coming up. Probably
gift,
because I think I added this following slide after we talked. So there is an NC State study that talked about like sort of when the best time is to trim your stems. And I think all of us sort of agreed that we would wait till, the temperature reaches 50 degrees or so until we would trim the stems. And finding out that's not necessarily the best thing to do for bees, that sometimes the first year perennial plants, the time to cut them is in the winter. And I have a little bit of a personal feeling about this because I feel like then you're cutting seed heads that are valuable to the birds population. but I thought it was an interesting article, and there's sort of a summary of it in a video. So I have this video that I kind of pulled up. It's, I think, 4 minutes long. If you guys are willing to bear with me for 4 minutes, we can watch it and then possibly discuss it.
Oh, yeah, let's see.
Cutting back dead plant stems keeps your pollinator garden looking tidy. You may have heard that you should wait until spring to do this, but our latest research.
Rick, the sound just cut out.
Oh, that was me.
Okay.
Pollinator gardens are a great way to provide food for beneficial insects like bees and other pollinators. The flowers in these gardens provide pollen and nectar that support bee populations, and this helps make sure there are enough bees around for other jobs we need them to do, like pollinating fruits and vegetables.
But a pollinator garden isn't only about food. It can also be a source of shelter. Of the 560 species of bees in North Carolina, more than 100 of them nest inside of stems, twigs, or wood. These bees are gentle, solitary species that use the hollow center of stems as a safe place to rear their young or to spend the winter. Some of the main bees we see nesting inside of stems are small carpenter bees, masked bees, and leaf-cutting bees, along with a few species of gentle solitary wasps. These stem nesting insects aren't aggressive to people, and they don't damage the plant. They only use a stem once it's already broken to expose the center where it's soft or hollow. So the very same flowers that feed bees in the summer are attached to stems that bees might live inside later on. So what does this mean for you as a gardener? Those dead stems in your garden are a housing opportunity for the solitary bees, but you might also want to tidy up at some point and cut back some of those stems. So when can you do it without destroying the very insects you're trying to protect?
To find out, we worked with extension agents and master gardener volunteers across the state of North Carolina. In total, they sent us nearly 3,000 stems flipped from 20 gardens over the course of 2 years. And we wanted to know, when were those stems actually occupied? So let's walk through the life cycle of a perennial plant. It has a long lifespan, but we'll start in the first year that this plant is going to bloom. In the spring, it sends up some leaves, then it flowers, then those flowers die back. Then in the winter, if you do nothing, those dead stems stay on the plant. At this point, we found no bees in any of the stems in the first winter after the stem was alive. So it's safe to cut back stems at this point in their first winter because no one has even moved into them yet. But come spring, last year's dead stems are prime territory for nesting. During the spring sampling period in our study, 70% of the gardens had at least one stem with a nest in it. Native bees can be active as early as February and March, so you could have residents moving into last year's stems very early in the spring. And at this point, you do not want to mess with your stems because bees could already be using them. Then in the summer, we found occupied stems in half the gardens. We're still talking about last year's stems. And in the fall, right after the first frost, those 1-year-old stems were starting to disintegrate and disappear, but still 11% of the gardens in our study had some stems with nesting or overwintering bees inside. And those bees would then remain in the stems throughout the winter. So after a plant blooms, our recommendation, based on our latest research, is to cut the dead stems back that very first winter. Maybe leave them on long enough for the birds to get the seeds, but don't wait until spring, because once the weather warms up, bees are moving in, not out.
When you do cut your stems, if you want to have nesting habitat, leave a stubble of 1 to 2 feet tall, rather than cutting all the way down to the ground. This still gets you a tidier look in the garden, but it creates habitat for stem nesting bees because cutting the stems actually makes the stem interiors even more accessible. You can repeat this process every year, cutting only the stems that grew the previous summer. Do note though that if you deadhead or trim stems early while they are still alive in the summer or fall, bees could move into these cut ends as well. You would then not cut them again in the winter. So to recap, to help your pollinator neighbors, you can give them a place to live by trimming your perennial stems in the winter and then leaving these stems in place until they naturally fall over. For more information on gardening for pollinators, visit the Pollinator Extension website at pollinators.ces.ncsu.edu.
What do we think?
That makes sense to me.
Yeah, I thought that was great.
Yeah, it's more helpful than just saying wait until May, because in fact, May doesn't appear to be a good time to cut the stems back, but you can still deal with, you know, a lot of people's gardens can't stay that tall and that dead looking over the winter because you're right on the street, they're right on the sidewalk and they're dripping onto the sidewalk. You know, there's a number of reasons that people like to cut their garden back a little bit. And now we can decide, well, okay, I'll cut everything back to 2 feet. It'll look nice and neat. There will still be stem habitat for bees come spring, and you can put the cut material, especially if it's still long enough, somewhere else in the garden where it's not visible, leave it standing upright and create even more habitat and the seed heads, Rick, too. You
Right.
could just
I mean,
put the
that's
seed heads somewhere else.
You were
and the-
mentioning the bird, food for the birds. You can just set those aside. They don't have to go.
They don't have to be on the plant. Exactly. The birds will find it no matter what.
Yeah.
Yeah.
okay.
I liked it. It's nice that somebody's actually looking at this scientifically and trying to figure out when do the bees need the stems and how do they use the stems. So now we know more. We can
Jessie,
work
what
smarter.
was Jessie, what was the study we heard about talking about a lot of pollinators use stems that are 2 seasons old, not just 1 season old? Do you remember that study?
I can't reference which specific study it was, but it would have either been through Heather Home, who does like Midwest and our area, or probably through Ohio State are the two that I typically follow. So it still falls in line with this same timeline that this video covered.
Right, that they use dead stems, not live stems.
Not live
Right.
stem.
Right, because they need to eat the pith out, and if the pith is still alive, that's too much work, I think.
So will they eat through the stem? I mean, I've seen holes in stems, right? So they can go in through the side, not necessarily down through the top of the cut stem, or do they
I
need the
think-
cut
Species,
stem?
yeah, it's species dependent. Some
Okay.
will tolerate a more woody stem. Others don't want any type of resistance really. So it depends on the size of their mandibles and how, like, the diameter of the internal stem. How much
Right, for the
they-
egg.
Would
I
the
think-
Xerxes Society have some, be where you've heard that, Justin?
I was hoping Jessie would remember. I just remember her explaining it to me that a lot of species prefer stems that are 2 years old because, like you guys are alluding to, maybe it needs to be soft enough for them to be able
Right.
to easily use.
Mhm.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think bees go in from the top, which is why a cut stem is good, and that the holes on the sides are either exit holes or that's a woodpecker. I've seen woodpeckers on my cut stems drilling into the stem, and I think it's because they hear a larva in there. And so they're going to pull it out.
I thought that the percentages that she was talking, that the percentage of stems that had live bee or bee activity or stem activity were fairly high, I thought, right? Compared to
Yeah.
what you would expect. I'll be very happy if 75% of my stems in my yard have native bees. That would be
Right, that's what I'd like to look for. Yeah.
a very good thing.
I put in the chat the article because it had a list of plants that were really good for their stems, providing
and
bee.
And
Yeah.
that list will be in the newsletter too. I liked that list.
Cool.
Yeah, thank you, Denise.
Thank you, Denise. All right, next topic. Let's see here. Invasives that are popping up this time of year. So this is everybody's least favorite that pops up. And actually, Connie had a question in the chat of like, how do we handle lesser celandine? So, it is a force to be reckoned with. It is a plague upon most of our stream banks here in the Southeast.
Mhm.
I don't think that the Southeast is particularly special. I think it's an invasive just about everywhere you go these days. It does create thick mats of foliage that smother our native spring ephemerals. So it will actually prevent the emergence of native spring ephemerals. It's pretty easy to identify if you know what you're looking for. It can sometimes be confused with other native plants. But once you see it and once you identify it, it's pretty easy to identify from that point forward. It is, in my mind, one of the most difficult plants to remove. I've heard of people trying to smother it with very little success. I physically go out. I don't have much, but my neighbors have some, and I think the squirrels either move it into my woods or the deer track it in, but it seems to appear out of nowhere in my woods.
Yep.
I'm pretty vigilant about it, and I have taken to sort of wholesale removing shovelfuls of dirt just to kind of avoid spreading it. The tubers that they generate are very tiny and very numerous, and they can extend quite far away from the plant, a couple inches. So even if you think you're digging sort of directly in it, it's possible that they can still emerge. So you still have to be very vigilant. I think there was some controversy amongst the board through some emails that recently someone recommended just slicing and cutting off the tops of the foliage, leaving the bulbs and bulblets in the ground, with the plan of eventually exhausting the root source and bringing an end to the plague. Does anybody have any luck or comment on handling this particular invasive?
Ongoing
That idea was
experimentation.
from Larry Weiner, and
Yeah.
it was a one way of not having to use chemicals. But I think Susan's idea of smothering, it depends on how big your area is.
Yeah, and
He didn't want to spread the bulblets.
right. So at first I thought, well, cutting's not going to work because one, I don't think it does exhaust the root, at least not unless you do it 3 years in a row. But two, I'm noticing that, as you said, Rick, they're coming up now. And as I dig them, maybe there are 3 leaves on the ground. But if I dig down, there's a bunch more leaves that are going to come up. So if I cut now just below the soil level, I know I'm going to have to come back in another week or 2 and recut. But I'm
Yep.
willing to do that because I think cutting could work on a large area. So if I see individual plants or groups of plants, I'm going to dig them up. And as you said, Rick, with a good chunk of soil, throw the whole thing in the chicken run because chickens like this stuff. So
Really?
I'm relying on my
Okay.
birds to sort of kill
Good.
it off. Yeah, so that's good. But smothering, I did it one fall, and you're right, it did not work because the cardboard disintegrated over the winter and the celandine came right up through it. But I'm smothering now, like I did it 2 weeks ago when I just saw the leaves starting to come out, pulled all the dead leaves back. This is in the woods, put my cardboard down, put my wood chips and more dead leaves over it, and I think I'm going to keep track of it, but I think that's going to work for this year because I smothered at the right time.
That
Good.
was the other thing Larry Weiner said, was that the timing is critical, and now is the
Agreed.
time to deal with it.
Right. Once they flower, I think they're too strong. All you can do is, I don't know what you can do once they flower. It's just too late. I've also tried scuffing out the leaves as they emerge with my boot, literally as I'm walking through the woods.
Right.
And we'll see how that works too. Because I think those roots there's so much energy in those little bulblets that I think they can send up sprouts numerous times. So it's just going to be a matter of cutting it down every single time you see it. And on a large property, that's a lot of work and a lot of cutting.
All right, some sort of common sense things, right? So they do travel within water. Those bullets will be carried away. Typically, if you have them on your property, start at the top of a hill because they will sort of propagate downwards. So, you don't want to start at the top of the hill and then just get a fresh supply of plants washing down the mountain. I would also say once you remove them, plant them with something native and aggressive. Packera is.
Yes, that's a good point. The one place where I don't see them coming back is where I put Packera aurea.
Yep.
Good point.
So Packera is
And
a
Marilyn,
great.
that was your Packera, so thank you.
Actually, mine came from Maryland.
I
So
got
some that
Packera.
just popped up this year from Maryland. I'm very
Yeah.
excited. So
And I think
the other
Packera
thing,
is a good choice because it stays evergreen. So it's protecting the soil all the time instead of putting in something that also disappears later in the year. Yeah, but still disappears. So I think that's a good choice.
Plus Pacora roots, if you dig it up to transplant it, they are really fibrous and dense. I think they might actually crowd out lesser celandine. I'm cautiously hopeful that that's what's happening.
I think that, yes, it's supposed to crowd out. That's what I've read from the lady who, Lawson.
Oh, Nancy Lawson.
Yeah, she
The
uses
humane
Pacora
gardener?
for that. Yeah.
Yes, the humane gardener.
The other thing that's starting to pop out, it's probably been popping out all winter. I just happen to notice it because I'm getting outside a little more. Garlic mustard is starting to pop out of the ground. I'm starting to see more and more of it. I think probably all of us know what it looks like and what we have. First year have basil rosettes. They're very clearly easy to identify when you see it and know what you're looking for. The stems are sort of purplish. The leaves are dark brown and have a very distinctive pattern on the leaves. The
And they smell
roots,
bad.
and they smell bad, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's really one of the biggest sort of. Although I hear they're quite tasty, I don't. I have never eaten one, but they say garlic mustard pesto is something that is that I
Oh,
read about
seriously?
online all the time.
Rick, look at that photo that you have on the left.
Yep.
And look at the photo of the Pacora. And if you notice the Pacora edges are much smooth, it's very similar, but the Pacora edges are much smoother and the stem color is different.
It's funny you should say that, Marilyn. I had a picture. It didn't make it into this month's slides, but I have a picture of Pacora and garlic mustard right next to each other, and it's very obvious. Like to the untrained eye, you could see, but when you see the two of them together, it's very obvious which is which.
But it's
Yeah,
a good thing to know don't
Yep.
pull up the wrong thing.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah. But all you have to do is slide your hand down to pull, and you can tell the difference between the feel of garlic mustard, which you can tell it's a taproot, and Pacora, which is a fibrous clump.
Okay.
Yeah, your
And I've
hands
also
will tell
heard,
you.
a lot of recommendations I see that say don't even bother trying to pull first year garlic mustard.
Why?
Oh no, pull it, dig it, get it out.
Well,
Get
because
it
they
out of there.
say that, the disruption of the soil is liable to bring up more seeds than it's worth. Many of the first years do not actually even return to the second year, and it won't seed until the second year.
So be
Yeah.
careful that you at least chop off the seed head, before it the flower.
Correct. So
before the seed.
the priority tends not to be the first year basil rosettes. Wait till it pops up and then it does what's called bolting, right? So
Right.
that basil rosette shoots, the leaves actually become a little more pointy, a little less rounded. They become a little more rectangular, diamond shaped, spade shaped. And yeah, whatever you do, don't let it go to flower. Don't let those flowers go to seed. I have 4 years in a row now have been going out and done a pretty good job of picking garlic mustard. And I can honestly say that I feel like I'm making some inroads on my garlic mustard. There is much less this year. I hope that I'm exhausting the seed bank. The seed bank, I've heard, lasts 5 to 10 years. So I think I'm not out of the woods yet, but I think that I'm well on my way.
Oh, but you know what? Speaking of woods, Rick, especially in the woods, you can see whole rafts of seeds. But if you went out a month, 6 weeks earlier when the seedlings were just coming up,
Yep.
first two leaves, you can just scuff that whole, I mean, it's going to be, feet across. You can
Right.
scuff that whole thing with your boots and I think stop a lot of those seedlings from maturing.
I think you're correct, Susan, because I did that last year, some of the first year areas, and I don't see
Yep.
them popping back up this year.
Yep, that's what I've done too. I think that combined, as you said, with being assiduous about pulling even the first years, I think that really works.
Yeah. Definitely pull them after rain. Tends to be easier when the ground's wet. The roots themselves, it's a taproot, but it turns rather suddenly, right? So it will turn. If you reach your hand in the ground, you can feel that make almost a right hand turn about a centimeter into the ground. And if you run your hand along that root to where it turns and pull it where it turns, it comes out a little easier. You come out with most of the root. I've also heard that right before they go to flower, they pull out pretty easily.
That's true. You can just pull them by the stalk, right?
Yep.
Right at the
So if
soil
you
level.
wait till it
Yeah.
bolts, there's less bending down. less bending over, and supposedly it comes out pretty readily.
Good point.
The other thing that I have that's sort of evergreen year round, so this is a good time of year to yank it, is Lansseria japonica, Japanese honeysuckle, the vining honeysuckle. It's pretty obvious this time of year. It's emerged. I don't know that any of our native honeysuckles are out yet this
They
year.
are, and I was
Are-
going to ask the question, how do I distinguish this stuff from the native one that's growing on the fence right next to the meadow where this stuff is?
So
Does
the
anybody
native,
know?
the native one has much smaller leaves right now in comparison. Even in
Okay.
full sun with good soil moisture, they just have much less of a head start than the non-native. So if you're finding something that has like full leaves right now, it's almost guaranteed that it's the invasive.
Okay. Do they have
I
different shapes?
think
I
they
haven't looked them
also
up
have
yet.
a hole in the pith. There's in the center, if you cut a non-native, that you'll see a black or dark spot in the center of the stem, which I don't think
Oh,
native has.
I know
But
that's
the-
definitely the
you have to
case with
cut it.
the bush honeysuckles, right? The
Yeah.
Yeah, I think both the bush honeysuckle and the
and the vining.
vining, that
Okay.
both the non-natives have, I might not be absolutely sure. I mean, I'm not absolutely sure about that, but I'm pretty sure that when you cut it, you'll see a hole in the center, a black thing in the center of
okay.
non-native.
Thanks. I'll look for that.
Yeah, I'll
Seriously,
look
the
for it as
leaves are
well.
very similarly shaped, but I find that our native is just a bit pointier as it's emerging, like more
Okay.
narrow and pointy versus a little bit broader and a little more rounded on the japonica.
Okay. Thanks.
Thanks, Jess.
Yep.
Something else that I'm dealing with, all the time, it tends to be any of my disturbed areas.
Yep.
Potentella indica, mock strawberry, Indian strawberry. It looks a lot like our native strawberries, typically smaller leaves. The flowers on them are yellow versus white in the spring. And you actually see the fruit on the mock strawberries is very different than our native strawberries. The fruit tends to be pointing upwards, whereas native strawberries, the fruit tends to kind of dangle down from the plants itself. Not particularly, troublesome. It is, carried by most seeds pretty readily. The squirrels seem to love it. They seem to spread it all over my woods. It is not a problem now. It's pretty obvious that I can grab it, but if I wait till summer, it spreads pretty readily and it becomes a problem for me later on in the summer.
Yeah, this can form a thick mat, especially when it's happy and actually crowd out some less competitive natives. This is a good one to get rid of when you can. I've been pulling it too. That and ground ivy
Yep.
are definitely out there now.
The other thing that's getting ready to pop is Japanese barberry. Um, Sale and propagation banned in PA, so don't spread it, don't live stake it. But it is
Please don't.
starting. It is starting to pop out now. And I go up to the Poconos a lot through the summer, and you can see it looks a lot like that picture on the right in a good part of the Poconos, just because it's so invasive, it's so escaped cultivation, and is spreading to the understory of a good chunk of our forests.
Wow, that's
It's so
sad.
easy to pull out when it's small because the root system is not very deep. And when it's small, I have a ton of it in Maine, and the babies are so easy to get rid of. It's when they get bigger that it's more of
Yeah.
a problem.
When they get bigger, long pruners and heavy gloves, right? Because it
Right.
is tough on your fingers.
Oh, it's thorny?
Yes.
Oh, it's
Okay.
awful.
I've never had it. That's
Oh,
one I don't have to
awful.
deal with.
I can't
And I
believe that.
also read in the past that it is a habitat for ticks.
Yes, it's definitely a habitat for ticks. Because the deer don't, I mean, yeah, they don't chew it to the ground or anything, so the ticks just are happy right there.
Yep. All right. Well,
I think the tick thing has something to do with the mouse that prefers that as habitat. There's something related to a mouse and the deer tick.
The
and
mouse
that
is an
plant.
alternate vector. You're right.
There's a relationship with the plant, the mice, and the tick with
Yep.
Lyme disease.
I think
Interesting.
Right, yeah.
All right. Well, up on the screen are a bunch of natives that are getting ready to pop or are popping. I know who put this in here, so I'm going to ask her to kind of walk us through. I think probably everybody knows what number 1 is. Does everybody know what number 1 is?
Go ahead. Go with it.
So I'm assuming native columbine is our number 1, right?
Yep.
I would agree.
Number 2.
I have those coming up all over my mound where I got a flat of them from North Creek 2 years ago, and I wasn't sure how happy they would be. And last year I worried the heck out of myself because of the drought, and I watered them, and they seeded amazingly. So I'm really looking forward to purple blooms in a couple weeks.
And what are they?
Jacob's ladder,
Oh,
Palmonium.
No, number 2 is white wood aster.
Oh my gosh, this
oh,
looks just like Jacob's ladder.
Nice.
I think Jacob's ladder is
fooled
over
me.
there, number
Number
where's
6.
Yeah.
number
Right?
6.
Yep.
Come on,
Where's
Jesse,
six?
use the big long green witch names for the plants as a hint.
Oh, sorry, I was looking at the one to the right of the columbine. So
Yes.
it is Jacob's
So
ladder.
you were
Okay.
Yes, you were
you-
I
right.
thought that
is
was
Jacob's
2. I'm
ladder.
sorry.
right plant, wrong number, Susan.
That's
You
right.
know what? I can't see the numbers. They're too small. I'm not putting my glasses on.
Put on your number 2s.
What are those numbers? Now I see them.
Okay, so we're going bottom left.
Yeah, sorry.
Number
Um,
3. What's number 3?
Number 3.
Oh, is that a little, what is number 3?
Ground cherry? Is that what's
Mayapple.
ground cherry?
Yes, it's a
That's a
mayapple.
mayapple. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
Oh, I don't have mine yet.
They are sticking their little heads out.
I don't
Uh,
think mine are going to come back
Justin-
this year.
Justin
have to
asked
go
for
look.
botanical names because he must be studying. So, Podophyllum peltatum is the mayapple. Now we're going to go to number 4. which is
Mayapples are really important for turtles too, right?
box turtles. Yeah, that's how they.
Yeah.
That's one of their main food sources and how the plant gets spread most often. But they're clonal, so if you are lucky enough to get one, you can have a whole forest of them within a few years. They're really fun. Number 4 is just to the right of
Wait,
that.
but before you move on, Jessie.
Yes.
So if you want flowers though, I mean the fruit, don't you have to get pollen from a different colony? Or is that not true?
If you want more fruit, yes, but I do believe that one colony can make its own fruit because there are male and female flowers. You'll just get more fruit if you have different. However, I had rescued both. The one time
You're cutting out, Jessie.
yeah, because my dogs want to bark at the same time I want to talk. I had rescued this colony from somebody who was going to be putting in a patio. So I went on a rescue mission and we just dug up. I was amazed. This dainty little umbrella plant had a root that was like 3 feet long.
They're
that
fat,
would go
aren't
all-
they?
Yeah, they're like ropes. Like it was very impressive. And I just threw them in the ground in various places and I've gotten flowers. Not the first year that I put them in because they were rebounding, but the second year and on. And I've seen fruit, but it disappears pretty quickly because I don't think it's just box turtles. I think like squirrels and things like them also.
Rabbits
Probably. Yep.
Yeah, I've never seen my fruit because I think, like you said, it disappears.
Well, that's a good thing though.
Yeah, it's feeding somebody for sure.
As long as it's
Somebody
not
wants it.
rabbits. Box turtles I would like.
Yeah, I would be tickled pink if I saw some box turtles
Yeah,
here, but
yeah.
I see plenty of rabbits. Okay, on to number 4.
Is that the native Pachysandra? No.
You're
can't tell
right,
what it
in the
is.
top corner it is to the upper right of the number 4, but the number 4, the new emergence that I'm looking at is buried in the leaves there.
Is
Number-
it wood poppy?
Mertensia, maybe?
It is Mertensia virginiana or virginica.
Virginia.
Yes.
Virginia bluebells. Yep.
Wow.
I was
Speaking of wood poppy, does anybody know where I could get any?
Oh, Marilyn, I have wood poppy.
That is coming out now too.
Yep.
I have a
Yeah,
few-
I think I shared some with somebody and now I'm no longer at my place and I can no longer
Oh.
access my wood poppies.
You
Aw.
shared it with me, Marilyn, and I if it comes back this year, I will definitely share it with you.
Apparently there are some coming up somewhere. I can't remember where I heard about that, but
Okay.
okay.
So number 5, again, it's the purple and green for me. So I love all these purple and green new sprouts.
Is that Pacra?
It is, but this
But
is
it's not
Ovada.
aria.
Oh,
Yeah,
It's
the
Ovada,
other
yeah.
one.
So the leaves are a little more oval shaped.
Mhm.
Right.
This is like the heart shaped, but they spread very similarly. I'm actually finding a lot of babies in my mulched path that is just outside of the flower beds that Pacra is in. So
That's a hard one to find too, though, isn't it, in the trade?
it's harder than Aria. I
Uh-huh.
had gotten last year or 2 years ago, I think I got a flat from North Creek, and
They have.
it's made prodigious babies.
Jessie, what's your observation on the growing conditions for this? Does it like it drier as it's supposed to, or do you not see any difference?
I don't see any difference.
Okay.
I definitely wouldn't say that I have dry, and it's
That's true.
spreading all over.
Okay. But it
Yep.
spreads just like Aria does?
Yes.
Oh,
Yep.
good. Same flower?
Very similar. You wouldn't be able to tell the difference from what I'm seeing.
Okay.
Although last year at this time, I had actual flower buds on my Aria,
Oh, come
and
on.
I don't this year, but I think that that's just because our winter was so much colder that they're just slower to make flower buds.
Agreed. I don't have buds either. It was a longer winter
Right.
than last
Um,
year.
Glenn asked in the chat, when can you dig up and relocate native plants? I just a couple of days ago dug up and relocated some ostrich fern and some common blue violets, again, because they were in a path that, like, they've just moved into a path that I'm trying to keep as a path, and I put them somewhere else. But I wouldn't do extensive transplanting yet because we're still getting nights that are going to dip like in the frost zone. So if you have anything that's tender or like a young plant, I would wait a little longer until the nights are a little warmer. But there's some things that I think are hardy enough that they're still dormant and they're not going to care if they're in that soil or this soil.
Or Packy, for instance, anything that's sprouting now, I think is putting enough energy out.
Mm-hmm.
I would transplant Packer. In fact, I just did.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yep.
I think
Yeah, I
it's-
just transplanted a bunch of penstemon, and I think that was a good time to do that.
Yeah.
Oh
'cause-
yeah, those
yeah, their
guys.
rosettes are like swelling up too. You're
They're
right.
greening up. Mhm.
Mhm. Okay, number 8. This one's tricky. If I didn't know what it was, I wouldn't know.
Yeah, are we
I
looking
can't
at
tell.
the woody part, the brown part or something else?
The purple
Not the brown part, the
right?
purple part. Mm-hmm.
Purple part. Is it, okay, let me think. It comes up in, I don't know,
It's
7 is
considered,
violets, right?
it's not violets. 7 is violets. You're right. 7 is specifically it's, well, we'll get to 7 after you can see it on the screen. But
Okay.
8, thank you for making that bigger. That's very helpful.
Oh.
It's considered a spring ephemeral, although it doesn't fully disappear until very late in the summer. Almost makes it to fall.
Oh, it's bloodroot. Is that bloodroot? Look at the leaves on the
No.
right,
Wait.
right below the number.
I
I-
wish.
Hepatica?
No,
Is it hepatica?
it's not. It's uvularia.
Uvularia?
Bellwort.
Yeah, large bellwort.
Yeah.
Really?
So these purple spikes will turn into this gorgeous, twisted, neat green plant with beautiful twisted yellow flowers.
That's
Um,
cute.
It's fantastic, but seeing these little spikes pop up always make me happy.
Oh, that's neat. It looks like purple asparagus, but obviously not.
Yeah, right?
Don't
Um,
eat it.
And one of the main reasons that so many of these plants have this purple color is because it protects them in their young, tender stages from herbivory, because there's a chemical that's making that purple happen. So they know they're vulnerable when they first come out, and to keep rabbits and things from eating them, they have that chemical in them. So I find that it's beautiful
That's
to look at. But
fascinating.
fascinating, right?
Wow,
Yeah, I
smart.
never knew that.
Okay, so then number 6, we already talked about Jacob's Ladder, and number 7 is a violet. It's a specifically striped cream violet. I
Ooh.
find this one is much more advanced and bushy compared to the purple or the blue violet that is still swelling and hasn't really put out leaves yet.
Yeah, my
Hmm.
purples are barely making leaves. Mostly
Right.
they're not.
No, but these cream
That's very
violets are on their way. Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
When you say cream striped, are those the ones that have purple stripes in the throat?
They're very pale purple stripes. They're mostly like an off-white colored flower, and if you look real closely, you can see like barely.
Oh, okay. So that's not what I call Confederate violets. You can
No.
definitely see the purple in them.
Nope, they're very
Okay.
the flowers are less eye-catching because they're white
Yeah.
than the purple, but the form of the plant itself is so pretty.
And insects like white flowers.
Yeah, yep.
That's what I've read.
I think
I
Curtis,
found that the white violets are very prolific.
Oh yeah, these guys are making babies everywhere. Yep.
Curtis, I think you were on the lookout for violets, right?
Yes,
Well,
sir.
Curtis, if you would like some of these, come on over. I've got a whole path that you need to weed for me and take them.
I will. I will.
Violets are
Okay.
spectacular. They're really wonderful to have.
Yeah, I love them.
Thank you.
It is also raining here, Judy. I wasn't going to rub it in, but it is.
I can hear it. Yeah. There's rain. I love it.
Okay, this one's really tricky because it's a combo, and it's kind of hard to see. 9 and 10
All
bottom.
right, so let me go. I'll
left.
Yeah.
try
Maybe I
and
can
zoom
do
in on
that.
9 here a little bit.
Asterisk or no, that's a little too early.
All right,
isn't
so
it?
are we talking about the spiky plant is number 9 or the basil rosette is number 9?
Number 9 is the spiky plant.
Spiky plant.
Is it Tradescantia? Mine
It
are
is.
starting.
Yes.
Okay.
Good for
There you
you.
go.
Mine are starting.
Yep. And
I don't
then
recognize the
the
purple one.
rosette.
Oh,
is-
that was what somebody just mentioned before. Come on.
It's not penstemon.
Oh, it didn't?
Nope,
So
I
it's
can
not,
find
and
Oh,
it's
no,
not
their
an
leaves are
aster, it's
bigger.
not an aster.
It's
or-
not an aster, though I do have a bunch of asters already starting to want to take over the world again.
Okay, so what
Yeah, I've
is
seen
it?
that.
So the basil rosette is fringed loose strife, Lysimachia ciliata.
Really? Oh my
Yes.
God.
And
Oh, I
believe it or
don't have
not,
that.
that basil rosette has been like it overwintered. Most of them overwintered as basil rosettes. They are like plumping up now, but they were there all winter. And
Oh.
that deep purple color, they will end up being like this clear green by summer. It's really fascinating the transformation they make.
And that's all the protection you had on them? You didn't have more leaves or anything?
So not only is that all of the protection I had on them, but my above ground pool broke and sent out, and
Wipe
I
them
was
all out.
corrected, it wasn't icebergs because it was over land, so they were glaciers that
Oh,
covered this entire path, and they laid under a glacier for 3 weeks before it melted, and here they are
wow.
just being all perfect. So
Cool.
yeah,
Fantastic. And
very
what was that
fantastic.
again? It was a
That is
I've never had them. You said ciliata?
Lysimachia ciliata. It's fringed loose strife. I got them from, I volunteered down at Stoneleigh to pot plants for their sale, and a couple of the plants that they like didn't have pots for, they're like, hey, you volunteered, you can take some. And that was one of the
Yeah.
plants that I took, and they have just spread for me so nicely.
Yellow flowers.
Yeah, and they're beautiful yellow flowers.
Okay.
They get to be about 3 feet tall. They're very pretty.
Orange loosestrife. I see that.
All right. It's on my list. I'm going to check it out.
And if you would like some, they transplant fairly well. So just come
Okay.
through and get some.
Cool.
Okay, this one is. Anybody know what this one is?
Looks
Nope.
like a
Yum.
lily.
Almost looks like an onion, nodding onion, maybe.
It is nodding onion, Mark. Good eye.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
I couldn't believe the last time I looked, nothing there. And then today, bam, like 6 inches up already.
That's the pink flowered one, Cernuum, I think.
Yeah, it's like whitish pink.
Oh,
What
okay.
what did you say it was?
Nodding
Nodding
onion.
onion.
Allium
Allium
Cernuum.
cernuum.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yep.
I've never seen it. I've always, no, yeah.
And then I didn't want the flowers to take all of the show. So this was another plant that was under that glacier.
Little blue
Is that
stem?
little
Little
blue?
blue stem.
It is
Little blue.
not little blue, though. I can
Oh.
see like that minty color. I can see you thinking that.
Right.
Roots are hard. It is Carex stricta. It's
Mm.
tussock sedge. And I have this in my bioswale, conveniently, that caught the glacier.
That's
And
pretty big, isn't it? That's a big one.
it will end up standing about 3 feet tall.
Right.
But the fun part about it is before it was bulldozed by the glacier, they make like tussocks, like little teepees almost on each mound of their grass. And they usually stay up all winter. This time it didn't, but I was really happy to see it's still coming up through the center like it would every other year, even though
I think they're pretty sturdy.
Yeah, I'm glad. I was happy
Are
to
the
see.
leaves blue? Do they stay bluish like that or not?
They don't. They get more like just a standard grass green color.
Uh-huh.
Hopping
But
There
back
are
to the
some bluish ones though, Susan.
I'm
There are
sorry.
some bluish sedges.
Oh
They have
yeah,
a really
Flacosperma I have.
seed head that I really enjoy. When they
Yeah.
bloom, it's lovely.
There was a question in the chat, Jesse. How do you tell the difference between nodding onion and the weed yard onion that show up in lawn grass?
That's a great question. So the nodding onion, and I don't know the right term for a plant like that, but the blades of it like are thicker and they're not as grass-like fine. Because I have plenty of spring onions that I call them that are like very bunchy and just look like a bright green little bunch of grass right now.
Much finer. You're
Much
right. That
finer.
looks nothing like onion weed.
And
Yeah.
and are there stems kind of more round, hollowy, round things? They're I guess they're leaves rather than stems.
Yeah, they're definitely plumper on the nodding onion. Like you can squeeze it and it's got something to it, where the spring onion just feels kind of like grass that you would pull out. Yeah.
And the spring onions, and I have a lot of this, what I considered spring onions is actually Star of Bethlehem. You can tell by this
Ooh.
fine silver
That's a bad
line
stuff.
that goes
Bad
with the green.
stuff.
And that stuff is everywhere. I take
Yep.
out.
That's an invasive, I mean, that's a very aggressive.
Yep, it is.
All
Yeah,
right,
I've been
and then
digging that.
this is the last one, guys.
Okay,
Um,
can't see it.
It's
Oh.
blue and green and pretty and emerging.
Yep. Just like all the others.
It's not
They're-
little irises, are they?
They
Little
are little irises. Iris versicolor. Now
It's-
this is the
versicolor?
It
Is that
is.
Oh my
purple one.
gosh.
And it's purple flame. This is the only cultivar that I showed you. And it was created by Mount Cuba and labeled because of this purple new growth that it gets out. Most irises, because I have the non-cultivar, the straight species iris, that are much broader already and they're just strict green.
Okay.
Christy wants to know what number 9 is.
Number 9 was spiderwort.
Oh, that's right. Tridescantia.
So thanks for playing.
That was great, Jess. Thanks. That
No
was
problem.
very good. Thank you for adding those slides in the. So that's really kind of it as far as native plants goes for the month. I did kind of want to give us a little bit of a drought update. I updated this morning. This is local conditions. As you can see, Southeastern PA sort of sits in, the driest part of the state right now.
Wow.
Where 13% of the state is in severe drought, and most of that is within our area.
Yep.
A D2 severe drought is crops and pasture loss likely, water shortages are common, and water restrictions are typically imposed. So, until we get significant amount of rain, just kind of conserve, keep an eye on things, water anything you plant. If you see trees that you planted that are stressed out, you might want to consider taking a 5-gallon bucket of water, maybe punching a small hole in the bottom and sort of letting that bucket soak. I've got a bunch of milk jugs that I did not winter sow in this year, and I think I'm going to try that with some of the areas that I have plants to just sort of get a deep, slow soak on them when I go away. So I'm going to fill up those milk jugs, put a small hole, and sort of put them in the area so I get sort of a drip irrigation in some of my native plant beds this year. I figured that would be a good use for my leftover milk jugs.
True. Another good thing to do, at least around the house, is get those downspout extenders that Home Depot has. They're expandable. So they come in maybe a 3-foot length and you can pull them out to 7 or 8 feet. So you just screw them onto the end of your downspout and then you can shoot them out into a bed that's in that area. And just as Rick said, you can drill holes in the underside so that the water soaks in for that whole length of the extended downspout. And then whatever's too fast flowing to soak in will just shoot out at the end.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you everybody for showing up. I mean, I'm sure we typically hang out here for a little bit and, native plant talk amongst the members, but that is all that's official. So I want to thank everybody again for joining us for this month's meeting. For a lack of a real agenda, I think we did great. So thank you everybody for joining us.
Yeah, and if people have questions or comments about what was discussed tonight, feel free.
I just left one
Chris.
comment
Go ahead, Chris.
in the chat. I go to the Mainline Unitarian Church when we've been planning a big Earth Day for April 27, lots of different organizations and activities. And I didn't know if you guys wanted a presence there.
Thank you for the invite.
Where is it?
It's in Devon.
Okay.
On April 26th from noon to 4.
Thank you for the invite, Chrissy. I don't know that we're going to table an event there, but we would certainly, welcome everybody and encourage anybody to come celebrate the Earth Day event. And you may see me there. I'm home that weekend because I think we've got a bunch of things going on in terms of plant sales. And I think our Jenkins trip is that weekend as well. So we will be in the Devon area.
Okay.
Can I share something before my phone dies? I'm driving home from work and it's about to die. Those of you in Chester County who are familiar with Somerset Nursery on Route 100 between 23 and 401, it is opening up again soon under the name Apricity Gardens, APRICITY. I would encourage all members to try to find contacts for Apricity and bombard them with the need for native plants. I found them on the Nextdoor app. Is the only contact I found for them so far, because they're not officially open yet. And I bombarded them with a ton of information and hopefully we can get them in touch with some local native plant suppliers like Benmore Wells and Octorara and things like that. But if we can get more members and to reach out and contact them, please, let's do kind of a social media blitz type of thing and really convince them there is a big need for native plants and not the status quo landscaping companies that don't do anything ecologically beneficial.
Can we put that in the newsletter, Susan?
Probably not a great idea to advertise a business because then we will have all businesses asking us to do that.
So we
And we
just
don't even
advertise events.
know what this business is like.
But we can sort of spread the word, right?
Sure, you can spread the word informally. Yeah, and I don't know if everybody can post on our Facebook page or not, but if it's postable, it's certainly something that could be posted. But we need to be careful not to
in the
look like we're
chat.
supporting to supporting any one business.
Remember,
Heather posted
not
a link, said that May
Sway
10th
them.
is, sorry, sorry, Justin. Go ahead.
I just wanted to point out it's a catch-22 there. But we know a business is opening up and we want members to influence them a certain way. It sort of is like you're saying, advertising or promoting them. But how else can we get large numbers to tell this opening business, like, hey, this is the need in the area. These are the customers that are looking for this product. You should sell this product, rather than wait till it opens and find out, oh, they're just another cookie cutter, non-native landscaping status quo company.
Well, I think we have to keep in mind that if a business is opening, they already have a business plan, and they're probably not going to pivot their offerings just based on some customers coming in and talking to them. I think any business is going to have to see how the sales go. And over the season, word of mouth, Justin, certainly people can chat with each other and post on their own Facebook pages or Instagram or however people communicate. You can encourage your friends to visit this nursery and then ask them to carry native plants. But I wouldn't think that most businesses are going to pivot their existing business plan unless their plan is not working for them. And as we know, most conventional nurseries work because there's a lot of people out there still buying conventional plants.
Julia C actually posted the link to April City Gardens website in the chat. So perhaps a very good thing to do would be to reach out to them online. I think we just lost Justin. I think Justin's phone just died.
No, he died.
So yeah,
They have a website and everything. So I mean,
let's encourage them,
as long as we don't talk to them as on behalf of the chapter,
right?
Just as individual native plant enthusiasts, absolutely.
I would certainly encourage members to reach out to them and encourage them to carry native plants in their selections. Heather actually posted that Delco's Master Gardeners program has a plant sale at Smedley Park on May 10th. That's just outside the Blue Route. That tends to be where I pick up the Master Watershed Gardeners native plant sale for the Penn State Extension. It is just off the Springfield exit of the Blue Route.
If people can send me these events for May, it'll get in the next newsletter.
So that is also
that would be helpful.
Is that Brandywine's plant sale too, Marilyn? May 10th?
Brandywine is on Mother's Day, which is the 11th, I think.
The 11th.
Okay.
Right.
Looks like I'll be spending some time in Delaware County that weekend.
Brandywine's
Chester County, right?
Brandywine, I think it's Chester County.
Is in Chester
I don't
County.
know.
Correct.
I know where it is. That's all I know.
All right. Anybody else have anything they want to talk about?
Rick, I had put in a couple of more slides. I think it was under the thought of the month slide. This, if we didn't have other things to chat about, this was the former site of said above ground pool. And,
okay.
I need ideas. I already have a list of plants that I want to put in around it, and I
So
think
you're changing it because of the disaster?
Yeah, there used to be a pool there. Now
Right.
there's a big circle.
I remember.
Yeah. So at first I was sad because I really do like napping, floating in the summer. But then I was like, oh, well, now I have another big space to work with because I haven't had that in a while. So, yeah, just if you have any great ideas that I can incorporate in there, I'm taking all ideas into
I
consideration.
see some line drawings. So what is the golden arch there?
I'm probably going to do some type of, I'm going to keep it like a circular area and put in an archway that gives it like an entrance.
A circular water area or soil?
No, it will be, I think it'll be partially like like a paver patio type deal, because under that black felt tarp is a sand base, because that's what was under the pool. And I don't want to miss the opportunity of being able to already have a base down to put a little bit of a seating area in. And then the other half of it, I'll dig up that sand I'm planning to do like a path into and out of this area. The white rectangle will be probably like a pergola so that there will be some shade. And then I'm going to plant some trees from Go Native Tree Farm. And some shrubs like winterberry. No, not winterberry, inkberry, because I want to stay evergreen. The X's are things that are not native that are going to come out.
Okay.
Jessie, if you have not dirt, if you have sand, what about a gravel garden? Those things are so cool because you use use pebbles, not driveway gravel. And
Right.
the places that aren't planted are your automatic paths. You could do like a fairly formal knot garden with native plants, like you said, inkberry, which is evergreen, and a couple of little junipers that you can keep trimmed like for corner blocks. And then in the, you can look at Hampton Court, has a famous knot garden in England. You can just do designs with color, like different colored foliage, different textured foliage. That would be so cool. And then, like you said, the pergola in the middle.
Yeah, that
Woo.
would be neat. My only concern is everywhere that I don't have paved or heavily planted, no matter, like even in between blocks and things, I will get asters that grow. And I think that if I tried to do a gravel garden with those kind of more delicate-y plants, asters are just going to take over in the gravel.
Well, you'd have to pull them. I mean, everything
Yeah.
has to be weeded.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep, that would end up being, so I'm hoping that the shrubs and trees that I plant will eventually provide more shade. And I think gravel gardens are more like full sun, right?
Oh,
So
yeah, they're definitely sun. Yep.
almost as a temporary.
You can't do trees in a gravel garden that I
Right.
know of.
So it would almost make a temporary transition potentially between the beds if I did a gravel type incorporation, because I'm thinking the right side is going to be the paver patio kind of deal, and then the left side I want to plant in wedges of like phlox and swamp milkweed. And
Did you say shade? I mean, Elysium, have you tried Elysium?
why
You know what
why
I
am I
mean? We're on the northern edge of Elysiums, but the heat is going north, so
why am I not
it's an
talking about
evergreen,
planting?
it's an evergreen kind of rhododendron-ish looking leaf. And you can either get it with red flowers and it's a licoricey smell when you press the leaves.
Oh,
It's called
Well,
Florida anise tree.
Thank you, Florida
okay,
anise tree.
Yeah.
That I've had pretty good success just sticking it in the ground here and having it grow.
wow.
And
Wow.
it
Mine
loves
hates
shade
it.
and it's evergreen.
Well, it likes shade. Yeah, there's not any shade there now.
Not
But
now.
but that's what you said you wanted. So, and it does take some sun, but you're right. It's
So
gonna
until
be.
these little trees and shrubs that I'm getting, probably 5 years,
Yeah.
I will have some shade in this area, but not until then.
Right.
Okay.
But that's my next big project. I thought you guys
You
would get
always
it.
need a
You're
big
ambitious.
project.
Every
You always
year.
have a big project for every year. I mean, it's
Every year.
interesting. Maybe we'll have a fall meeting on
Can you
what happened
imagine
in
Jessie
Jessie's
without
pool
a big
area.
project?
Yeah, we'll see what this looks like in the fall.
Yeah, how's
If
your
I-
pond coming along? What does it look like this
Oh
spring?
my gosh, the pond's fantastic. It's so pretty. I should have
That's
sent
that's what I thought you were talking about, but this is where the pool was.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
this
that's
is
amazing.
like 3 times the size of the pond.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Oh,
it was a
that is huge.
27-foot diameter pool, so it's a
That's a
big
sizable
area.
area. I didn't realize it was
Didn't
that
you have
big.
some bird nest boxes and things there? Something, or some kind of structure? You had some structure near the pool.
The pond.
Benches? No, it was near the
So
pool.
when it broke, it actually broke in the most ideal place that it could break. It broke essentially right where the arch is. And so it took out one non-native ship laurel, which is the dead thing on the bottom left.
Right.
And the pump housing area.
Maybe
And then it broke because it had ice that had formed on top. And so those two glaciers, one of them went over and almost exactly on the shed base. So we haven't gotten a shed built yet, thank goodness. So it was just the
Right.
base. So that hurt almost nothing. It did run over a large tree that was completely horizontal. This little 7-year-old large tree. However, it had no visible break in the trunk. So I stood it back up and I staked it for a little bit of support. So we'll see if that girl makes it or not.
Okay.
And then the other part of this big glacier went over my entire bioswale, which I showed you, like, stuff is coming up. It broke a few branches on a button bush, which I don't think you can kill them. So I think it's going to
Right.
be very resilient. So of all of the places it could have gone, if it had broken on the other side, it might have gone into the pond, which would have been devastating. So it was pretty ideal where it gave way.
Was it a chlorine water pool?
It was a saltwater pool.
Saltwater pool. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, the pond
So-
would not have liked that. You're right.
Yeah,
Wow.
and it just would have been so bad. So
Yep.
I have to share the most terrible, sad part about this whole thing. I found out because of this event that I had this adorable raccoon who was like quasi hibernating, I guess, under my big arborvitae trees along the fence line. He must have like dug himself a little space and was all covered in leaves and things, must have been in a deep sleep when this pool broke and all of that water flooded that area temporarily. He must have drowned. How terrible. It was the saddest thing. And that's the only thing that makes sense because he was perfect, just dead.
Yeah.
So yay, I was like harboring this cute little guy in my yard. Sad that I killed him unintentionally, but at least it's happening. And like, I didn't even know it. And the dogs like are letting him live here, so I was pretty happy and sad about the damn thing.
Yeah, I can't believe the dogs didn't chase it off because
So you do have good
yeah.
habitat, so they'll come back.
Yep, I sure hope so. So I've never seen a raccoon so up close, so it was really amazing to be able to like see him like that. Because I wasn't concerned about like disease or anything. I knew what happened, sadly. So that was a neat like sciencey part of it, but
I had one that would come walking on my little deck. He would come up
Aw.
right to the back door.
But usually they have families, so I'm just wondering if there were, unless it was a young one that was just off for its first winter, there might still be family members around.
maybe.
So Julia in the chat has offered to bring you over some raccoons you can borrow. Curtis, I want to thank you for joining us. I did see your note. I didn't get to mention, Curtis has also volunteered to table at the Phoenixville Earth Day event. So
Oh,
we
perfect.
have somebody that's willing to table and volunteer, and I certainly appreciate that. Curtis, we will talk more later.
Yeah, that's a great event.
I certainly thank you for joining us, Curtis. You're a boon to our group. We thank you for joining us.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Thank you.
the challenge is always finding people who are available to table. There's so many good events and never enough people. So that's good.
I had sort of a weird one. I don't know if you guys saw, I got an email from like the Homegrown National Parks folks. And I thought that these were sort of interesting. They were plug kits that they're offering. I mean, I certainly don't endorse them. I just wanted to mention that they're there. Homegrown National Park is the Doug Ptolemy thing. So I think that it's sort of reputable. There's a bunch of different kits. I like the fact that they are ecoregion specific. Right, so it's not just like a Prairie Moon plug pack that you get for $150. The $165 kit seems to be like 25 native plants specific to the ecoregion.
Hungry Farm did something like this also, at least a couple years ago. I don't know if she's still doing it, but that would be an even closer
genotype.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I believe she still is doing it. I got some from her last year.
Excellent.
But what do
Yeah.
you guys think about these kits? I mean, when I look at the plants, I say to myself, okay, can't do that because of deer, can't do that because I have no wet. I mean, if I just went and bought those plants not knowing what my site conditions are, I'd lose half of them and be really discouraged. That concerns me about all of these instant garden kits, no matter where they're from and who puts them together.
Yeah, I
What-
think I don't know how they advertise them, if they explain that you need to protect them because like they're putting out a buffet without a lot of protection. But hopefully they're going over that with their site prep directions.
But
Yeah,
also just the site-specific issues.
yeah,
like
Sherry
I
did that with hers. She would label them either as like a woodland edge, northeast woodland edge kit,
Okay.
say a slope stability kit. But she would have specific locations for each kit that she had. Which
And
I,
also the wet dry thing. That's just so critical. I can't believe how important it is on my site to not plant anybody who needs water because I just don't have it.
Right.
And that's just a huge constraint. And some other people may have the opposite constraint. They might have wet soil where the stuff that I can grow would just drown and be unhappy.
Yeah, that's my end. There are some dry loving plants that I would like to have, but I know they won't be happy here, so I just avoid them.
Wet feet, right?
Right.
Yeah. I think that's so important, site conditions, because it's really hard to force a plant into a site condition that it's not happy with.
Right.
And instead of
Yep.
amending your site or your soil, just get the right plants, man. Like just don't make it so hard on yourself.
Agreed. Although I would
Well-
love to have swamp milkweed, I really would.
It's interesting if you look at the plant list that they plant, they're all pretty aggressive species, right?
Ah,
Smooth
okay.
asters,
That's
mountain
smart.
mints, lance-leaf coreopsis, pestamins, black-eyed Susans, coneflowers, purple lovegrass, and goldenrods.
Well, those are
They
pretty,
did say it was for beginners, right? I
Right.
mean, you need feel a little success.
right.
and-
You don't
and
want picky
before you
stuff.
Go into any, yeah.
I think what's
Yeah,
kind of
I can-
interesting is they put like the whole layout thing. Do you see the layout?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I do.
Oh my gosh.
That's a
Well, it
smart way to
depends
do
on
it.
Yeah.
Depends on your son though, too. I mean, which, who
Depends
likes
on
which
how many kids
exposure.
you have helping you out.
Ha ha ha. Right.
So I just thought that was kind of cool.
I think it's
I wanted to
cool.
mention it. So
But I
Hey.
agree with Susan. I mean, there are some things that are gonna work and some things that might be a little bit more dicey. But, it's a learning curve.
right. Well,
Yeah, and if
thank
it
you, everybody.
encourages-
This was a very successful meeting. Like I said, for not having any, speaker or agenda and just a couple slides that we all threw together, I think it went very, very well.
I learned a lot and I thought it was fun.
Yeah,
And we
I
had
think
good
it's
attendance,
fun.
Rick.
Mhm.
Yeah,
We had good attendance. Yeah.
and everybody stuck around. So
Mhm. Yeah. Well done, you. This
yeah,
was your idea, I think.